You haven't had an ecumenical council in forever, so you don't have authority in your church.
Do you think that ecumenical council is the only authority? No. Local councils and bishops are authorities. So they're confusing authority with infallibility, first of all. Local synods are the normal way that the church is governed, not ecumenical councils. Ecumenical councils in the first 1,000 years happened every 100 or 200 years. They weren't normative. They were rare things. And by the way, there's no clear definition of what an ecumenical council actually is because it changes over time. Just like the patriarchates change over time. If we lost 3 patriarchates, would that mean that there's no possibility of an authoritative council anymore? No, because it's a movable, changeable position based on whether or not people apostatized. The council, the Patriarch of Constantinople has been a heretic before. So does that mean that we can't have councils anymore because the first see for us has been heretical? No, of course not. Because again, ecumenical councils are not the normal way the church is governed. It's normally governed by your local bishop and a local synod. That's the normal way. That's how the church... Where was the ecumenical council from the book of Acts to Nicaea? By the Roman Catholics' own arguments, the church lacked guidance for 300 years. Do you see how silly this is?
Yeah. And I've heard you mention the Orthodox Dogmatics by Staniloy many times, and I actually really need to read that, but I haven't been able to find it. I'm sure that would answer probably a lot of my questions about like how the Orthodox, because I was going to ask about how you get to infallible. You do have infallible beliefs that you believe are infallible, right?
Okay, but look, that book doesn't deal with that, and none of the books are going to answer this question because nobody has the list of infallible things. Do you understand that Roman Catholics don't have that either? There is no such thing.
I do understand. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
And you can never bypass this question by just saying, well, we have the Pope and you don't. Because there's no list in the Roman Catholic Church of the dogmas, of the infallible beliefs. I mean, you could say something like Denzinger, but Denzinger doesn't exhaust it. Now, Denzinger is a 700-page book that only goes up to Pius XII. So it doesn't have Vatican II in it. And guess what? There's a lot of other things that are not in Denzinger that would be dogma. So how do you know that you've interpreted, number one, the 700 pages of Denzinger right? And then how do you know that beyond Denzinger, you've got the dogmas right, listed right? You don't. Do you understand that it's just moving the problem back a step? So just saying that we have an arbiter, the Pope, doesn't give you epistemic certitude. But the Roman Catholic apologists always try to pass that off as the solution to the epistemic problem.
So what is dogma then in the Orthodox view? Maybe if that's
ultimately dogma is the direct experience of the individual with Christ. So anything that you experience in the Orthodox Church that is Christ teaching you is going to be dogma. However, when it comes to public teaching, for us, dogma could include liturgy, could include the Bible, could include the lives of the saints, could include the ecumenical council teachings. You're not going to find in Orthodoxy the perfect list of the dogmas because it doesn't exist. And neither can the Roman Catholic Church give that to you. In other words, the question itself is framed from a Latin Roman Catholic view as if there is a list of the dogmas I have to believe, and there's not.
Yeah, from the very beginning, I found that really appealing for some reason, but I have to give it more thought because I see what
you're never going to get it. I mean, I used to think the same thing, and when I was a Protestant, when I went to Catholicism, when I was 21, 2, 3, wherever it was in there, that's what I thought too. Oh, the Protestants, they're all debating, and they don't have a final authority. They don't have any certainty. The papacy will give us certainty. But then if you spend 10 years in Catholicism, and you see all the disputes and the debates, and the fact that for 60 plus years, the Vatican, the Roman See, has promoted all of the liberalism, the whole system collapses.
But then you couldn't house of cards. It's like, Jay, you and I talked about with philosophical systems. Philosophers and philosophical systems, they're basically con artists who are really smart that are tricking people into buying a lemon, something that's no good. Roman Catholicism the same way. Because of the scholasticism and how complicated, and they present, we'll present you this certitude. It's just like, advertisement. We'll present the certitude. you know, the other guy's giving you a bad thing, but here you get this, and it's complicated enough that people actually fall for it. But like Jay says, if you're investigate it more, right? If you're more skeptical, you start to realize it's all smoke and mirrors in a house of cards.
Yeah, they're not united. Are you under the impression that the Roman See and the so-called churches in communion with the Roman See are not united? All I have to do is give you the example of the Uniates, right? Rome doesn't care if you're a Uniate and you reject multiple ecumenical councils. Just accept the papacy and believe whatever you want. You can be revere Nestorius as long as you accept the papacy. You can believe in Gregory Palamas and the energies and all that. Just believe in the papacy.
And this is why it's moving to this kind of interfaith and stuff like this, and why the Pope's praying with pagans
and Muslims.
And as long as you pay homage, and that's exactly what Roman Catholicism is. It's not Christianity, it's papism, right? It's the Pope. So doctrines don't actually matter. He's going to, and I predict this, he's already consecrated, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, Mormon temples, and now Mormons are adopting sacraments because of the Pope and stuff like that. Roman Catholics aren't going to care. The Pope's not going to care what your beliefs are as long as you're united under the Pope, which is exactly what we see with the Unions. They're united. The theology and everything's completely different. It doesn't matter what they believe as long as they're united. And it's going to get worse like that. They're going to start seeing stuff that's farther out being united, and you're already seeing the signs of that.
Yeah, that's all the implications of natural theology and the idea that there's a generic God that we all worship. I mean, that's fundamental to papism. So, again, there is no trump card. There's not an epistemically privileged position that papism gives, but that's what it sells itself as having.
Yeah, I see the problems there, and I'm not. That's why I became unconvinced, pretty much, of going that route. But I did kind of, in my mind, I was sort of like, okay, Orthodoxy is like an in between Protestantism and the Catholics, because they do have normative binding authority like the ecumenical councils and these things, but they don't.
Well, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. You're not going to have a list of the dogmas, but what you will have is a list of things that you could say are sources of dogma. So you could say the teachings of the church fathers, you could say the councils, the Bible, the liturgy, the lives of the saints. All of those are sources of dogma for an Orthodox person. But there's not going to be the piece of paper that lists the infallible dogmas.
Yeah, I have no problem. Actually, I think that's a much better way, because when they try to specify that, then they just end up contradicting themselves.
Exactly.
And I've seen that
yes.
demonstrated a bunch of times. So yeah, I agree with that. But I just don't like the loose system of the Protestant sort of like ecclesiology, and because like what could the Trinity just be wrong then? And I've asked people that question then, because it's like, okay, well, we're not really convinced of the Trinity except over time or something. Is it time that makes it? So yeah, those kinds of questions are the ones I've been dealing with.
No, I think that when councils meet to define what's already believed, right? They're not making dogmas. They are explicating what's already believed. And so we don't have the Roman Catholic notion of the evolution of dogma, where like Ibarra argues that
there wasn't nobody believing the icon doctrine until it developed an icon council.
That's not true. And if you read St. Theodore the Studite, he argues that this was always the belief of the church. So he doesn't even know what the people at the council teach, right? So you can read St. Theodore the Studite on the holy icons and see that he's arguing that the council is in continuity with everything before. It's not a new, made-up, evolved doctrine that came out of nowhere. Anyway, but good question. Thank you to the mods, by the way, for that stupid bot that always comes in my chat.
Hey bot, no one is clicking on nude HD XYZ adult dating. Nobody's clicking on that, dude.
Full Quay here, global citizen. What's up, global citizen? That's a good little global citizen there. Hopefully he's a fan of Klaus and Gil Bates. What's up, global citizen?
Hello.
Hey.
So I was recently sent a PDF article by Francis Gumerlock. Have you heard of him?
Is he like a Calvinist tag guy or something?
It's about millennialism and the early church councils.
He's a Protestant scholar. I remember this,
Yeah.
but I don't know this article that you're talking about. What about it?
So his take is he starts with the Council of Ephesus, saying that there's no statement from the council within the decrees condemning chiliasm, and it didn't even come up as a topic.
It's not Ephesus. It's actually earlier than that. I think millennialism is condemned at Constantinople 1, I think.
Yeah, so that's like his weakest claim right there. He does talk about Council of Constantinople 381. So he puts a few Orthodox claims of the condemnation with Apollinarius. The clause, the kingdom will have no end, was added to refute chiliasm. And so that's our claim, and I understand that. But then he goes on and he says it's actually just his Christology, not the millenarianism that is condemned. And he says, the Council of Constantinople rejected the teaching of Apollinarius, and Apollinarius was probably chiliast, but it does not openly reject chiliasm. And he says, rather, the kingdom will have no end was added to refute Marcellus, who taught that in the eschaton the Son would no longer exist, as he's brought back into the monad of the Father.
I mean, I've never heard this argument. I don't have the Acts of Constantinople in front of me, so I can't recall like specifically which section is referring to. I mean, I think everybody knows Apollinaris is refuted there. It's always been my understanding that it refuted millenarianism, but even if it didn't, I mean, later councils also refute it, and I mean, there's nobody that believes in millenarianism after the 4th or 5th century in the entirety of the Orthodox Church. It's seen as something completely antithetical to orthodoxy. So even if technically speaking it wasn't specific in the council, it is become understood as incompatible with orthodoxy and has never been compatible.
Yeah, and I believe that. And even if the council did condemn it, it wouldn't have any bearing on a Protestant to begin with, so it doesn't even matter.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why I mean, if he doesn't accept the authority of the councils, then why does he feel the need to, try to vindicate Constantinople 1? But it really, from the Orthodox vantage point, it doesn't matter, because, like, if the mindset of the church within the next few centuries sees that as antithetical and nobody believes it, then that's all we need.
Yeah, agreed. And then it's interesting, he brought up the book you referenced, Yaroslav Pelikan, The History of Tradition, and he said, according to him, chiliast beliefs escaped official anathema by all of the early councils because they did not deny the creed. My investigation, okay, that's what Yaroslav said. But
but remember when he wrote that, he was still Lutheran, so Pelikan, when he was doing the History of Christian Tradition, if I recall, was Lutheran and then eventually became Orthodox. So I don't remember the exact. I mean, if you read the book, the Christianity and the Metamorphosis of Natural Theology book, you can tell he's Orthodox there.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, this guy's whole thing is the ancient church specifically, so he doesn't treat.
Well, but there's no such thing as there's no such thing as but there's no such thing as a low church ancient apostolic Christianity that's neither Catholic nor Protestant nor Roman Catholic. I mean, the whole Protestant thing is built on that there was this low church early apostolic period, but that's a myth. Now, I will admit that some of the early church fathers do appear to be premillennialists. You see this in a couple of the post-apostolic fathers, but so what?